What is going on, my friends? There we go. Everybody popping in. So, week 2. Okay, we got a lot to cover today. I believe that this may be, I'm going to say this every week, but this may be the most important, I would say, live session. Because, and here's why, okay? This is the DNA of a world-class, like elite 1% group training session. So it actually covers a lot of the group training, but obviously we're going to focus on more specifically on small group personal training. So this is kind of like the principles as well as the practical behind the scenes stuff. Because before we even go dive into this, okay, here's what I see, okay? This is what I see, and this is where you have an incredible advantage to differentiate yourself from anybody else. As a coach, if you have a gym, if you have a business, again, if you have a team working for you, it's going to trickle down, and that's your goal for it to trickle down. But it's this, that sessions tend to be very much so like, okay, I'm going to put up a workout, the workout's going to be hard, and then we're going to crank the music, and that's our group training, right? And that's so far from where I believe it should be and where it can be. And this is the stuff that makes you get to the 1%, when people go through the session, they're like, what the hell happened? Whoa, right? And if they go somewhere else, there'll be such a big contrast between your session and their session that, one, they're going to keep coming back to you. Number two, your value becomes so much higher, right? It's like, I'm going to use a lot of restaurant analogies because, one, I'm a foodie. Number two, one of my kind of big, I would say, influences and mentors in business is a guy by the name of Danny Meyer, who's one of the greatest restaurateurs of our time, in a phenomenal book called Setting the Table, which everybody should read over and over again. But it's the same thing, right? Where you come to a restaurant and the service was so phenomenal with surprises and just so many little things, and you're like, man, this was amazing. You got to tell everybody about it, right? Nobody has to ask you how the restaurant was. You're like, I got to tell you about this place. You got to go there, right? That's what you want your group training sessions to be like. And if you do these things here and you practice them, it will be that. Now, notice, I come back to this word, practice. So right here at the top, great, I would say, quote, perfect practice prevents piss poor performance, right? You guys probably heard about that before. But how much do you really employ that, operationalize that into your business, okay? The amount of times that even, when I talk to coaches and I talk to gym owners and they say, I want to really improve, fill in the blank. My small group personal training, my semi-private personal training. And then I'll go oh, great, how much time do you spend on this per week with your team, with yourself? How much do you practice it? Literally go through scenarios, role play, and it ends up being zero for most, right? Or very little. So my question is how do you improve something when you spend so little time on it? Okay? It's very difficult. Remember, I'm going to speak to you as if you want to be the most elite small group personal training in your area, right? It's it's basically the differences between, kind of like a 3-star Michelin restaurant versus, a crappy meal with the crappy ingredients with crappy service somewhere else. That's how I'm going to communicate with you because I want you to employ this in that manner. So here's the deal. Because we talk about practice, right, and the practice and preparation being so important for performance, where do we start when it comes to having a great, the DNA of a world-class small group training session? Well, it starts the day/night before. Just like when you say, how does a successful day happen? Well, it starts the night before because you got to prep for the next day and you got to get your sleep. When we talk to our clients about this, right? If you have horrible night of sleep, the night before was crap, the day is not going to really be successful, okay? Same thing here. So going back to the conversation, right, the day night before, when you have your session, you should check who's coming, right? Who's coming to your small group personal training session? Is it regulars? Is there going to be somebody new, right? Is there some new people here, okay? And then obviously names. So if you got somebody new coming, you should probably remember the name. And if you have a specific system, like a Vagaro, a Zen Planner, you should be able to see that person. We see when there's a new person registered, we see their face. Why is that important? Because when I come to class, I should be able to already have looked at who that person is, get as much information about them, see their face and go like, hey, Mary, so excited to have you here. Hey, coach, Jess told me that you guys have a strategy session. I know you're struggling with your knee a little bit, but that's okay. I already made modifications, right? So I'm preparing already the night before. So I want to know who's coming. I want to know if there's any new people. I want to know everybody's names. I want to repeat the names so that I'm like ready. Remember, the most beautiful sound to any person is their name. So little stuff like that really, really matters. Now, how do we get that? Well, any type of form, again, if you have a type form, we talked, many of you I already seen have gone through the client intake form that's in the ebook, because I see it come to my email that you've been filling it out, going through it, which is great. So when we get that client intake form, I already know a bunch about, I would say, the new client. Why is that important? Again, these are little things that matter a lot. If I come to class, new person, I've never met them, another coach took them through a strategy session, I'm like, hey, Mary, so great to see you. Hey, listen, I already made a couple of changes. You're going to have a great session. By the way, I know that you just came back from New Mexico where you were looking out for your mom for the last 2 weeks, right? I'm giving you an example. That person's going to be blown away because they're like, how the hell does he, wow, he's coaching me or knows about my knee, is already prepared, knows I was taking care of my mom in New Mexico. Oh, man, I feel heard, appreciated, understood. Boom, right? Many bonus points already ahead of time, right? So, again, how do we do that? Well, whether it's like a form that you have, I would certainly hope you have some type of CRM, right? Customer Relationship Management System, whatever that is for you, but I think that's very, very important because it can help you, because that allows you to create more personal connection and look at things like injuries, right? So if somebody's had problems with their shoulder and your program has an overhead press, imagine just going to that person going like, hey, I know you got a shoulder issue, so we're going to put in a little filler for you, and instead of the overhead press, we're going to have you doing a landmine press, and your shoulder's going to feel just fine, and we'll be able to train it, right? Again, right now, just the things that I'm mentioning, those bonus points keep stacking up, and the person's going like, wow, this is different. This is different than anything I've done before, right? Or if they've never done it before, they're like, wow, this is a great experience, okay? So again, we want to have this, and if you don't, it's something that you want to implement because it will significantly help you, especially if you get to, 70, 80, 100, 200, or you have hundreds of members. It's very difficult for you to keep everything up in here. You got to have somewhere to have that second, I call it the second brain, right? You got to have a second brain. Now, going back to this, how did I do that, and how do I continue to do that, and how do I recommend that people do it, is the 4x6 cards, right? I wish I had it in my pocket with me, but 4x6 cards, it's like, obviously, a 4-inch by 6-inch card. On both sides is just blank. And that's where I prepare for my day, right? So I outline the day, and I outline the session. So if we're talking about small group personal training mastery, then that means that, for those sessions, I'm going to outline what I'm writing here, okay? So meaning, if I got a couple of new people, all right, we got Mary and Jake. I'm going to write that on my 4x6 card. Mary, her shoulder's bugging her. Jake, knee surgery 9 months ago, right? Still can't get into deep flexion. And maybe a couple of personal notes about them, okay? On that 4x6 card, and we'll get here, by the way, I'm going to write down the motivational story or the message that I have for that group that day, okay? What else? I might write down something to celebrate of a member. Like, for example, pops up that it's a 1-year reminder for somebody being a member. I'm going to come in, be like, hey, congratulations, give them an appreciation card, $25 Nike gift card, something, right? And I'm going to have a note of that. That person is going to be like, what? Blown away. Or if they hit a specific goal, like they got their first chin up. Do you see where I'm going with this? Okay? My 4x6 card is my second brain right here. Right? That's my second brain. But it's my second brain, and it's only focused on the next session. Not everything, just the next session. Right? Because your goal is to make that next session phenomenal. And once that session is done, then we're already preparing for the next one. Right? You want to learn how to be phenomenally successful in this industry. That's how you operate, right? Be where your feet are, make that thing the best possible, then prepare for the next one, okay? So 4x6 cards is old school, because like the way that I look at it is like your Typeforms, your CRM, any of the technology, to me, that 4x6 card is that my next day, and it's like how I'm going to operationalize that day and make it super successful, right? Now on that card, I'll do other stuff. So if I have semi-privates, athletes, whatever it may be, it'll go on that 4x6 card. Sometimes if I have a very, very busy day, I may have 2 of those, right? I got them in my pocket. I pull it out for the next session. Okay. All right, boom. Ready to go, right? I roll in. I meet new people. I connect with them. And automatically, they're like, wow, this is different. Now, this takes me over here, right? So we talked about how the night before, the day before, you already have to prep for the next day. This is a principle. So right here, again, everything that's on the board, don't worry about it because, number one, I am talking about this in depth. So there's nothing on here that we're not going to talk about, right? This is, I think, a big thing that you should think about as an individual coach and as a person that runs a team is identifying the top 1 to 3 feelings to create for your client in each and every session. So what are the feelings that you want to create? Think about that. How different that is as a perspective. Like, what do I want these clients to feel during and after this session? So then once you have that, what do? Well, you're going to build your SOPs, which just means your systems of operation, right? We're going to build your systems of operation and experience achieving that outcome, okay? Because remember when we talk about targets, if I have a target, now I can reverse engineer and say, what do I need to do to hit that target? So even in the ebook, I actually shared these, but I'll share with you again, right? The 3, like if I had to pick the 3 main things I want to achieve, the feelings I want to achieve every single time in any of our group sessions, and just in general as a gym, to be honest, like this is my 3. 1, care and appreciation, right? I want our clients to feel cared for and appreciated. And I would even say that here, within that, safe. Now, safe can be physical or psychological, right? Psychological safety is a massive factor in success of any team. So if you study what makes teams successful, Google did a massive study on this, and they said it wasn't the groups that were the most talented that had the best success. It were the groups that had the highest psychological safety, meaning they can continue to show up, they can express themselves, they can even, I would say, have critical feedback and still feel like they can come back and they won't be judged and they'll be safe, right? That's what psychological safety means. Now, you have to create that also in groups of training. It's no different, right? If you look at yourself as a team. So care, appreciation, but again, also psychological safety, right? And remember, the things that we even talked about here already start addressing that. Do I feel cared for and appreciated if somebody knows my name, knows my issues, knows some things I've been going through, little details about my life, what my dog's name is? Hell yes. Hell yes. Right? Number 2, strength and empowerment. I want people, again, I think this world is like too fragile. We want to make people more anti-fragile, right? Stronger, more empowered. We want to build confidence. We want clients to come out of there and be like, I can do, right? Not like I can't or like, oh no, this is too. I want them to just every session to come out of it and be like, I can be better. I lifted a little bit more weight. I got another rep. My form improved, right? We want them to be better. And that's strength and empowerment. That's the feeling I want them to have. Number 3 is community, right? Make them feel a part of something more, right? Something bigger. And like, again, these are, our brains grew, our community, I would say our communities grew because of that, right? In our DNA, it's embedded that we want to be parts of communities, okay? And without going into like a full-blown, I would say, session around how we got here and why that's so important, like just know, like that's such an important part that you could, and I'm not obviously advising for this, but if the training was good, but the community was exceptional, people would rather come back to that than if the training was great, but the community is not good, okay? You're always going to win with a strong community. So these are the 3 feelings I want to have every client experience. So then, how do I create that? And I start operationalizing that, right? And again, hey, don't be afraid to, if you have a team, have a in-staff team meeting and kind of group think this and talk about it, and what are those feelings, and then start having essentially people, I would say coaches, or I would say even parts of the team, go like, hey, I think that this behavior creates that feeling, right? So you can kind of, I would say, structure group session, and somebody has a cool idea. It's like, why don't we do, fill in the blank, okay? So the second part here is like, right, we said build your SOPs and experience achieving that outcome, and we also need the structure for program design standards as well, right? Which we've talked about week 1, how to execute and why we're executing it that way. But also, program design standards, you'll see like there's a lot of things in here that are gonna kind of riff on that, right? Actual practical steps that will help you achieve that. Now, this is what I haven't talked about before, not in this specific presentation, but I wanted to touch on a little bit. Once we start talking about, caring for people and, preparing the night before. So I'm going to go over strategic, tactical things in here as well. But this is the most important part, okay? Can you go above and beyond if you don't do this, right? Care. Like, you got to care. You got to have the willingness for it. So going back to part of the reason I mentioned Denny Meyer today was because how he has influenced me through teachings of business in the restaurant industry. And it's something that he taught me was that something called the 51 rule, or the 51 Ers. Okay, now let me explain this to you, because this is very, very important, okay? When it comes to hiring, okay, meaning if you're in a position where you own a gym, or you're going to hire people, this may be one of the most important things you'll ever hear, okay? 51ers. Let me give you the premise. If I teach you every single thing I know about fitness, strength and conditioning, program design, external cues, internal cues, like all the geeky stuff, and same thing on nutrition, the X's and O's of nutrition, the macros, this, that, and the other. If I teach you everything, right, that's 49 out of 100 points. And if you knew it at a 10 out of 10 level, you get 49 out of 100 points, okay? 51 is the other side. So 51 is empathy, care, work ethic, being a team player, being a good communicator, right? The willingness to go above and beyond. Like this is 51. This is and here's the kicker, okay? I can teach you this, right? I can teach you the 49 all day long. You could be a sponge, okay? If you come to me as a sponge, I can teach you the 49 over time, right? But I can't teach you 51. Now, if you're in a certain environment, I believe you can shift that a little bit, but you just can't teach it, which means that you have to find, and this is critical, I really truly believe this is critical when it comes to building successful gyms, group training businesses, or just training businesses, period, is that like, you got to hire for the 51, okay? So I would much rather have somebody that's technically less proficient, but loves helping people. The 51ers, what Danny Meyer says, is they have a hospitality reflex, okay? So meaning that like their natural drive is to serve. And a hospitality reflex is just like if I drop this pen and I have a reflex to catch it, the 51er has a natural tendency to serve, okay? And when you have that and you couple it with that 49, right, because you taught the technical aspect of it, now you got some great coaches, okay? And this is why, like for instance, this small group personal training mastery system, I want to teach it to you so that you can teach that 49, right, and be smart about hiring a 51er. Now, I'll give you an example. And I know I'm veering somewhat off, but I'm really not, because I think this is so important that if you get this right, it will make everything else easier, right? So a lot of our coaches were once clients, had a massive transformation, physically, mentally, got encouraged into like fitness, like they got the bug, passionate, because they found their purpose to a degree, interned, and then became coaches, like part-time, built up. Like, so that's a whole I would say a whole bunch of, or 50% on average actually, over the last 14 years, say 40 to 50%, were at some point in time actually clients, right? And I'm proud of that. And that's kind of like that 51er mentality here. Now, another example would be you're at a coffee shop, right? You get your coffee, you love your coffee. There's a person that's serving that coffee, is always in a good energy, really service-oriented, going above and beyond, makes you feel good. When you have a crappy day, they're smiling, they're asking you questions, so on and so forth. And they like to work out, okay? To me, that would be a great prospect where I say, listen, you want to grab a coffee? Got a couple questions to ask you. Hey, have you ever thought about going into fitness, right? Because you notice they're a 51er and they're into fitness. So I'm not saying that they for sure will be your next coach. I'm saying that these are the things that I'm looking for because I'd like to be, I'm an educator, so I feel very, very strongly about that, teaching that 49, right? And if we can have more of these 51ers in industry, I promise you have a better business, okay? Okay, I digress. I thought that was a very, very important conversation here, but we're going to go back and rock and roll, right? To integrate this, how do we teach that 49? So some things, must-haves, right? Because I'm going to share kind of like my system with you. If you want to plug and play other things in there, great. This is part of the system, right? Preparation requirements for a coach. So what the things that you have to have is like what happens before the session, during the session. We talked about before the session somewhat, right? So you want to have about between 5 and 9 touch points to happen every session. The reason I say 5 to 9 is because if you have 20, that's just not realistic, right? If you have like tons of things, if you have too many things, then you're just not going to do them. But 5 to 9 touch points every session that you're like, these are non-negotiable. You got to do them, and this is what's going to make a session great, right? And you have to make sure that you kind of weave within those boundaries of those 5 to 9. So how a client is greeted, very important. That should be one of the touch points. How the session starts. What happens during the session, and we're going to go through that, by the way, right? How the session ends, and what happens, if anything, after the session. There should be touch points on this, right? So that each coach, I could sit there, sit down, and watch and go like, did those things happen or did they not happen, right? And not only did they happen or not happen, that's why we talked about the 51ers, right? It's not just what, even more importantly, how, right? So what I mean by that, all right, for instance, did I say somebody's name? Hey, Larry. Or it was like, hey, Larry, what's going on, man? It's so good to see you. I did the thing, I did the what, but how did I do it, right? Very, very important. Again, this comes back to like, why should you practice these things? Why should you do role play? Why should you watch people doing stuff and shine a light on it? Because if you don't, you can have the law of the slight edge where things little by little incrementally get worse. Or you can keep it accountable, inspect what you expect, and make it better. Right? Now, if you're a solo person, if you're on watching this and you're like, I'm a solo coach, well, then you have to be the highest standard possible, because when somebody comes in and works with you, for you, they're going to see what you're doing. And if what you're doing is like a 6 out of 10, guess what? It's going to be very hard for them to be better than 6 out of 10. Be like, why would I do it like that? Like, I see you doing it. You're a 6 out of 10. Right? So this might be a little nudge for you, like, right? Because you might be like, damn, man, I'm like a 4 or 5 out of 10. And it's important to admit it so that you can get it up, right? So you can improve. You can go 7, 8, 9, 10. Practice, practice, practice. Keep becoming better, okay? So again, like, listen, these are the must-haves, because how the client is greeted, making sure, look, these are super basic things, but with a smile on your face, always high-fiving, right? Or if you have, me personally, I have a thing with every person in the gym. A lot of them are high fives. Sometimes it's a dap. Sometimes it's a fist. Sometimes we got like weird signals, whatever it may be. But that's your thing. And so you're going to go and have basically a how you greet people. And you want to be there early. We're going to go into that a little bit later, right? You want to have time to be able to connect with people. Okay, we started at the beginning, care and appreciation. So if I look at the must-haves, right, this is a training session right here if we look at the bullet points. Number one, what's going to happen is going to be a motivational message and story. This doesn't have to be long. This is not a 5-minute story, right? I've mentioned this before. I wrote it even into the ebook where I say, for example, let's say I come into my small group training class. I go around. I say hi to everybody. Hey, what's going on? Dap you up, connect a little bit. right? Remember, I want to be there 15 minutes earlier. Now, if you're going from one session to the next, maybe it's a little bit less time, but the minimum, absolute minimum, is for you to have 5, 6, 7 minutes to connect with others, with the clients that are coming in, right? Especially if there's some new people, very, very important. Motivational message story may be something like this. Guys, listen, as we start doing warm-ups, it's very important to remember that details matter, okay? Details matter. We want to set the standards of every rep up here. My goal for you is that if I wake you up in the middle of the night and I say, hey, listen, let's do the deadlift, that you do the deadlift with great form, with all the coaching cues, with all the checklists. And so even when we do warm-ups, guys, I want to make sure that you pay attention to details. When we're doing our lizard from the Spider-Man lunge position, I don't want you to just kind of flail around. I want you to have the rib cage out. I want you to reach. I want you to slowly control and look at your arm. Keep reaching and breathe. Exhale and bring it back in. So I want to promote excellence. So details matter, okay? Because guess what? We're not just training the actual exercise here. We're training your focus and attention on details. So when you're tired and after a long day of work, you come home, instead of just kind of going through the motions, you're going to treat your kid with excitement, right? Even though you're tired, you're going to be excited because those details matter. It matters how you treat your family. It matters about how you do your work, right? Notice, so what did I just do? By the way, I'm talking to you about details mattering, but also I am going through my motivational message and story, and I'm creating a frame for the whole training session, right? So now, when somebody's slacking, I go, hey, listen, Mary, remember, details matter. It's important. How we practice, we're not going to fall to our level of motivation. We're going to fall to the lowest level of our training. So we want to train at the highest standards, right? So I'm creating a motivational message and story to create a frame. This can be 30 seconds, 60 seconds. Sometimes it can be a little bit longer. There's many a times where I'm like, hey, listen, guys, I want to share a story with you today. It's important. Right? It's important. The story is important because I'm going to share something that's really valuable that if you take it away, it's going to make your life better. Right? Boom. And I'll go into it. Now, where do I do that? Remember what I said? 4x6 card. I got my story ready. Now, when you read enough books and you write enough 4x6 cards, I promise you I can pull out a story at any point in time without the 4x6 card. But I still, to this day, prepare. Okay? From there, we're going to go to our dynamic warm-ups, right? And we kind of broke that down in week 1. They're usually going to be about 8 to 12 minutes long, but that's always going to be in that sequence. Number 3, training, nutrition, lifestyle tip mastery. So again, you can actually do this during the warm-ups, by the way, right? It doesn't have to be a block of time. You could actually talk about it during. And it may be something like this. Studies show, guys, that like protein, most people undereat on protein, and it's one of the most important things when it comes to changing your body, both recovery, body composition, building lean mass, because, and I go through the things, it's more filling, the thermogenic effect of food, it's the building block of all muscles and tissues, right? And so here's one way that you can just think about getting enough protein in per day, right? And I'll give them that tip. So I spent 60, 90 seconds while they were warming up doing that. Nutrition, sleep, lifestyle tip, or mastery. Mastery is like once we get done with the warm-ups, I might take them through an exercise, like a kettlebell swing, and go like, here's a couple of tips to improve your kettlebell swing. Now, I'm not going to spend a ton of time here. It's like minutes, right? Minutes. But why is this important? Okay? Because if they're coming to small group 3 times a week, even if they're coming twice, but let's say they're coming 3 times a week, and let's say they're not coming 52 weeks a year because they're going on vacation, this, that, the other, but 48. That means that almost 150 times per year, I'm able to instill some type of tip, story. I'm brainwashing them into greatness, okay? I'm reinforcing that. Donald Miller talks about this. People need to hear something 8 times to register it. Not to like remember it forever, just to register it. So we have to continue to repeat messages over and over and over again. Like so many times I'll tell a different story that creates the same point. Like I'll tell 20 stories to make a point that details matter, okay? Because again, people have to hear it over and over again. So many a times what happens is that you get bored with the message, but they don't. So it's your job to constantly keep reinforcing this. In fitness, this is a huge thing, right? Because most of us, it's like novelty, new exercise. Oh, right? And we're all over the place, and we're just not instilling it deeply. Okay, but again, deliberate practice needs repetition. So this is why the master coaches, like I continue to get excited about telling the same message, right? Or should I say through a different story, but the same point that I'm trying to make. And when you can do that, right, as like Winston Churchill would say, I might kind of mess this up, but it's like, right, it's success is to be enthusiastic even through failure and failure and failure, right? So it's like, to me, that's the way that it is. Like when I tell the message, the story the first time, they're not going to get it. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to say it 100 times, they're going to get it. And they do. Over the course of a year, 2 years, people change. Their belief systems change. They start believing themselves more. They have different behaviors. That's what we do. That is our job as being a coach, okay? From there, I'm going to go into the training session breakdown. This is important. So training session breakdown, I mean, I'm trying to keep it 3 to 4 minutes. Now, here's the deal. For example, because we only have a limited amount. There's 2 reasons why the training session breakdown shouldn't be too long. Because if it's too long, people just got their warm-ups done and now they're cooling down. And we also got to keep their attention. So I'm going to break down block number 1. You guys saw how obviously block number 1 is going to be strength and power. I'm just going to explain that. If it's week 1, right, week 1 of a new program. All right, guys, listen, today we're going to do trap bar deadlifts. And I got a trap bar right there. And I've said this 1 million times, but I'm going to do it again. Here's the things that we're looking for. I want you to close the car with your butt, right? The car door with your butt. Push your butt back to the wall. I want to see the logo on your chest. I want you to crush the handles and try to break the handles with your grip. Squeeze the orange in your armpits. Brace for a punch. Look 3 feet away from you, and I want you to push the ground like a floor press, right? Floor press the ground away. Okay, I'm going to go through that. I'm going to coach literally like that. That first half an inch, I want it to be slow, and then after that, you can push a little bit faster. Right? Have that sequence. Even if the weight is light, I want you to make sure you lift it as if it's heavy. After that, we're going to do the scoop toss. I just want you to touch the ceiling with the jam ball, right? Same position as deadlift. Throw it, try to touch the ceiling. Be explosive, be violent, right? And then from there, we're going to do a push press with the landmine, right? And I'm going through this. Notice, I'm essentially coaching like I would in class. I'm going to get through this in 3 minutes. All right, the first 2 rounds, remember, ramp up rounds. So if you can deadlift 225, first round you're going to 135 for 4 to 5 reps. Then you're going to go second round 185. The third round, now you're working hard, and we're going pretty much close to that all-out like effort, right? Now, how do I get to that 3 to 4 minutes, okay, or even less? You got to practice it. I don't see this whatsoever when I ask coaches. I go, have you practiced this breakdown yourself to a pretend audience? Just like put yourself in front of a camera. The camera is your audience, is your group, and you go 3, 2, 1, boom. Hey guys, all right, listen, the new program, blah, 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 and you go through it. Practice your motivational message. Practice your nutrition tip. Practice your session breakdown. Okay? Do it for an hour. You'll be able to do it like 10 times in a row. You'll get better at it. Okay? This is what I was talking about at the beginning. There's most coaches, not you guys, but most coaches aren't willing to do that. It's like, oh man, I want to have a packed class. I want to have the best group training session. I want to kill it and make a ton of money. And it's like, have you done this, practice this? No. I want to have a jumper like Steph Curry. Okay. Are you shooting 1,000 shots a day, every day, and practicing another 2 hours on top of that and doing? Well, no, I don't have time for that. Okay, well, how the hell are you going to be phenomenal at this? Right? Even if you practice it for 15 minutes a day, every day, and you go through these things, guess what? It's going to be crisp. Okay? I'm going to continue to come back to this because, right? Remember, it is a show. Okay? I've been fortunate enough. I love Cirque du Soleil. I've been to Cirque du Soleil shows, many of them. And I know not only a strength and conditioning coach for Cirque du Soleil, but a couple of performance. I've been backstage and talked to a lot of them, I would say also the person that's a strength and conditioning coach. And these folks do this every night. Okay? A lot of times 250 nights out of the year. More, sometimes less. But many times 7 days a week for certain periods of time. Right? They're putting on a damn show. And every time they show up, it's a show. Same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again, right? But they're elite, 1%. The show is phenomenal every time. I've watched the same show like 3 to 4 different times, okay? And it's always like, wow. People keep coming back. Same thing with Broadway. Same thing with, you can imagine, I can have a lot of examples. Why do you not treat your training session like a show? Okay, and so that is exactly what I want you to get into that mindset. And guess what? They do thousands of hours of practice to be that good. So I want you to think the same. Once we break down the training session, then it's the actual training session, right? We're going to go over the rules of the training session, like how to really elevate it from the coaching standpoint, the experience standpoint, right? At the end, a lot of times we'll have the finisher. In small group personal training mastery, block 3 really is the finisher many a times, okay? And then there's a team huddle, right? There's always a team huddle. Team huddle, we bring it in. Sometimes, again, I'll reinforce the motivational message and story. Many a times, if I will tell another story that reinforces that, right? So let's say if it was a details matter thing, and I say, listen, in Japan, you know, they bow like to give you respect, right? And the lower you bow, the more respect there is. But it's like the story is show somebody as much respect, because that's what they think about and they believe in, as if this was the person that was saving your kid's life in hospital. Like this was the surgeon's going to save your kid's life. Right? So imagine if I was telling the story of respect and I was like, hey, like, let's show respect to each other. Let's show respect to the gym when we clean it, right? And I would connect these two stories because, again, respect is very important. You got to give it before you get it. Most people are like, no, I'm going to wait to get it before I give it. Inappropriate way of thinking. Again, so this is, how can I, like, look at how quickly, obviously I'm doing it a little bit quicker, but I would bring people in and so listen guys, like when I was in Japan, one of my favorite places because the food is mind-boggling. I told you guys I was a foodie, right? But there's so many things that I saw there that I was like, wow, this is amazing. What if we show this level of respect and fitness to our clients, to the gym, and taught them to show respect to each other? I can implement that into basically a story in a team huddle, right? I'm like, and how would I finish? Hey, I respect you guys for showing up, busting your butt, supporting each other. This is what it's all about. Bring it in, right? 1, 2, 3 team. So that's our team huddle at the end. So notice like how many times throughout this sequencing I can actually do, I call mental weightlifting, right? Because everybody understands physical weightlifting. I can lift 150 pounds, I continue to train, then I lift 200 pounds and 250 pounds. Yes, I'm getting physically stronger. My capacity is going up for strength, for endurance, so on and so forth, right? Well, what about mental weightlifting? Every session we can, with our messages and stories, team huddles, we can consistently do mental weightlifting so that people improve their mental capacity, right? That's how I think about it, and like this is what the sequencing does. Now, here you can't see it, but I'm going to bring them all up, right? Martin Rooney taught me a long time ago. He said, how good is your high five? And it's more than a high five. It's a concept, right? The concept is, do you practice the quality of your high five, right? And when he taught me that, I started like, by the way, I think I shared this with you before. It's actually in the ebook. To give a phenomenal high five, always look at the elbow, right? So always look at the other person's elbow. It's always a perfect high five. Now, the point of this is the details matter that I talked about before, right? How good is your high five? Like, what if your high fives will always make somebody smile, right? Somebody comes in, I'm like, hey, what's going on? Like, they can't have anything but like good energy around it. So that's the thought process, is like you're looking at these little things that make a big difference and add up. Things like the PR bell, okay? So remember the personal record bell. So anytime anybody has a personal best, personal record, you tell them to go ring the bell. It's experiential, right? They're like, hey, listen, go ring the PR bell. You just got the most push-ups you ever got. They ring the bell. The whole gym goes, wow, yeah, let's go. Right? So that's the mentality that you want to have, because now, remember, what feeling do we want to create? A feeling of community, everybody supporting us. a feeling of empowerment. I just got better. I'm ringing the bell because I improved my strength. I improved my strength endurance. You see how all these things are connected. Right? This is by design. Okay? These sessions, this experience, the way they feel, it's by design. It's not just like throwing shit against the wall and then hoping that it sticks and like hoping that it's good. No, it's by design. And then this, the power of moments. I've mentioned this before. I'm going to mention it again. It's a great book by Chip and Dan Heath. And there's a lot of different things in that book that I love and have implemented. But there's one thing that I want to share with you guys that's really, really important. People remember two things when it comes to an experience. They remember the peak or the low, and they remember the ending, right? So if this is the start, they remember the ending and the peak or the low. So they remember the worst part of the experience or the best part of the experience, and they remember the ending. Now, we can't affect the high and low as much for a group of people, but we certainly can't affect the ending. So the reason why we have a finisher and a team huddle is because it means that at the end, we can create some challenge. Remember, when people struggle together and suffer together, it bonds them, right? So I can tell you one of the last programs that we had in week 4, it was 8 minutes of partner constant like prowler densities. Oh, nasty, just nasty. You probably know, right? And people are like laid out at the end, and then once they get it together, they're like, yeah, they're high-fiving, and it's like it bonds them, right? Community, okay? And then I'll bring it into the team huddle, and a team huddle might be like, listen, guys, everything that you want lies on the other side of struggle. Everything. There's nothing. I'm like, hey, raise your hand. Is there anything that you've achieved in life and you have in life that was smooth sailing? And if it was, did you appreciate it? And then you see the heads nodding, no. Like, tell me one thing you're proud of that you worked really hard for. And somebody be like, man, like, got my law degree. Hey, I just did it, right? It's like, yeah, that's what we do here. It's like, this is going to help you improve your physical capacity, your mental capacity, but guess what? It's teaching you to understand that when we go through struggle, there are beautiful things on the other side. And when we do it with other people, it bonds us together. That might be my huddle story. It's quick, 60, 90 seconds. And everybody's like, man, boom, bring it in, right? And so that was the ending. And that ending made the experience better. The power of moments, right? So I took this concept and said, okay, how can we elevate every training session with just the last 3%, 5% of the session? That's how you have to think about it. And you might come up with another idea, right? And again, we don't have this in the budget yet, but I have done it. Afterwards, you go like, all right, guys, listen, recovery, everybody get a smoothie, right? If that was after every session, that'd be a tough one on the budget, by the way. But unless you're blending the smoothies by yourself. But do you see the point that I'm making, right? You design the experience so the ending is so much better. And I'm going to give you an example that's actually from the book. And I've reread the book multiple times. I haven't read it for years, but I remember this example, right? They did a really big study on like when women would go to the gynecologist, right? I would say a pleasant experience for most. And they would change just the ending, right? So in one scenario, pretty much it was like once the session was over, it was like, okay, bye, right? So it was like uncomfortable, I go home type of thing. Where in the other sessions, there was another 5 to 6 minutes of kind of, talking to them, connecting, cracking a joke, making them feel better. So it was just the last 5 minutes, right, of this session. And when they did the surveys, right, the session that ended quickly, abruptly, so it was uncomfortable, and it was like, all right, bye, okay? And then the second one, same session, uncomfortable, but the last 5 minutes were more like calming down, so on and so forth. And they ranked it a 5 out of 10 and an 8+ out of 10. 3 points, we're talking about a 60% difference in positive experience because the last 5 minutes were different. Okay? That's crazy. Why would you not design the last part of your session to be phenomenal? Right? It's a must. Okay, with that, let's go into some operationalizing while I operationalize this caffeine into me so I can keep this energy going, all right? By the way, C4, delightful. All right, let's go into checkpoints, right? Because again, these are things that you can see in every training session. And you could, what I'm talking about is that I could sit there in the shadows, very Ra's al Ghoulish, right? If you guys don't know who that is and you don't watch Batman, we got a problem. But I can say, did they do that or did they not do that? Okay? So check in beforehand. Be early. I wrote be easy. I guess you can be easy too, but be early. 15 minutes before. If you, like, listen, I remember the days where I was doing 60 hours a week of training. This is a true story. I was coaching 60 hours a week. Not working, I was working 100. I was coaching 60. And, you know, I couldn't have 15 minutes between sessions because it was like boom, and, but I would always have about 5 to 7, and I would start structuring that way so that I could go into that session ahead of time, be there and be like, hey, what's going on, Jay? How you feeling, man? How's the knees? Okay, cool, listen, still no deep squats for you. We're gonna do a goblet box squat when you do this, blah, 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 right? And they're just like, oh man, this guy's on it. He remembers everything. He knows my knee was hurting, right? Hey, you still sore? Mary, you still sore? I want you to pull back a little bit. I want you to do 2 to 3 sets in that first block. That's it, okay? Again, I got time to connect. Be early. Set the environment, music, equipment, etc. It's the other thing I see a lot of times that kind of dampen the experience, right? Training session starts. It's already starting, and it's like you're running around like, set up the sledge, safety squat bars. You know, so now it's like you can't pay attention to the people. You don't have it prepped yet. You don't have the music. Again, I'm a big fan. So we have Sonos in the gym, and then Sonos connects to every app that you can imagine, right? So it connects to your Spotify, your iTunes, whatever, Sonos Radio, Fit Radio, which is excellent, by the way. It's $40 a year. Fit Radio has DJ remixes on top of it. So it's great for small group personal training sessions because it's made for that. So it's a very good $40 spend for a great experience. But I would also say like creating playlists. I think creating playlists for small groups, so you have like 20 different playlists that last exactly an hour, and you're like, boom, plug it in. Because now, these are little things that go back to preparation, but remember, warm-ups are starting. Like during warm-ups, you probably don't want to have DMX, although like I do love a lot of DMX, but you don't want to be blasting like stop, drop, open up, you know, and it's just like breathe. It's not going to work well. So you think about the experience and you go like, all right, I'm going to start it with more chiller music. I'm going to ramp it up, and then once the training starts, boom, right? Playlist, drop it, let's go, because music is a big part of the experience, right? Like I want it to feel like a club where it's like the coaching is the highest level, it's like the beats are bumping, right? Everything is connected together, and again, things are organized ahead of time, right? Remember, listen, it's a show. One of my favorite movies is like The Greatest Showman, right? I always think about that. I'm like, man, are you operating like a greatest showman? Because when you do you understand that when somebody comes to your class and tries it out, like, you know, when we talk in week 4 about different front-end offers, the 3 VIP workouts, like somebody just getting a taste of this, it's going to be like they won't be able to not do it. Again, going back to that analogy where you're walking through the mall and like, you know, somebody keeps bugging you to eat the Kung Pao chicken and you're like, man, I'm good, right? And then you taste it and the chicken is bomb and you're like, man, I got to get some, right? So that's legitimately how you have to, somebody that's a client is like, I'm bringing a friend along, and the friend's like, all right, cool, like, I'll go, like, oh, I don't want to, you know, and then they go through the session, and they're like, damn, like, I got to come here. This is crazy, right? I didn't expect that. Wow, it was a show, okay? So making sure that you have that type of mindset. Changing energy throughout the session. Okay. So I'm going to talk about small group, I'm going to talk about semi-private, both. So I've always kind of had this rule where you want to go 2 points above where somebody is energy-wise. So think of a 0 to 10. A 0 is they're dead, so they're not coming to the gym. A 10 is that they're the most excited human being on the planet, right? Most people are neither one or the other. Most folks will be tired from a day of work, or, you know, they had a hard day the day before, they didn't sleep enough if they come in early in the morning. So let's say they're a 4, right? If they're a 4, you want to get their energy to a 6, okay? Initially, when they come in, right? The only thing I'd say is if they're a 10, you want to bring them down to an 8. But this is what I see coaches, like you kind of swing the pendulum. You got this coach, right? Somebody comes in at a 4, like, hey, what's going on? And you're like, hey man, let's go, man, life is great, everything's awesome, be grateful. And you're like a constant 10, and it's annoying, it's fucking annoying, period, right? And people will get annoyed by that. So you want to be able to manage energies, right? Somebody's a 6, get them to 8. Somebody's a 2, get them to a 4. Somebody's a 10, get them down to 8, okay? But the thing is, like, well, how do you do that? Well, you got to practice that, right? Because, again, if you're trying to jump to a 10, it's too much, right? But if you could give them a great high five, hey, listen, don't worry. What feeling, I'll say things like this. What feeling do you want to get out of this training session? At the end, how do you want to feel at the end of this training session? And some folks will be like, I don't know, I got to get this anger out. I'm pissed at my boss. All right, no problem. Guess what? I'm switching exercise for you. You're doing slams. Slams are a great exercise just to get people that are pissed off stuff out of them, by the way, right? So let's say I didn't even have that exercise. I'm like, you know what, Mary? We're going to do slams today. It'll make you feel better. And then when I'm coaching them, I'm like, Mary, fuck that ball up, right? And then, boom. At the end, they're like, I feel better, okay? Somebody else might be like, hey, I just need to I need to feel more confident during the session. I'm feeling down on myself. Guess what? I'm going to shine a positive light on like they're doing a rep. Great rep on that one. You know what? Push that a little bit more. Push that a little bit more. Wow, like that was the heaviest weight. Great job. At the end of the session, they're feeling empowered. They're feeling confident. They maybe have lost their confidence. Listen, as you're listening to this, you're like, that's a lot of stuff. I'm like, yeah. If you want to be the best, that's what it takes. Like, you can't, like, wake up in the morning and go, like, I don't really want to do a lot, but I want to be the best coach in the world. I want to make a lot of money. Listen, there is no program that will teach you that, and if they're trying to tell you that, it's bullshit. So I'm teaching you this. I'm telling you it takes work to be the best, okay? So managing everybody's energy throughout the session. When it's a group, we want to take them on a roller coaster ride. I kind of mentioned this a little bit, right? So I said, when we come into warm-ups, and I tell the motivational message, that's going to get people going a little bit. It's going to make them think. And then the warm-ups, we start slower and progress, right? So at the beginning, I like to do decompression stuff. So spinal rolls, child's pose stretches and breathing. And then we ramp up. Spider-Man lunge with rotation, squat to stand, side lunge with overhead reach. Now we're going to high knees, wideout drops, pogo jumps, right? It's like we're progressing the energy, right? Then we have a mini break here, and we break down the training session. And I'm like this. I don't break down this training session. All right, guys, I'm doing a trap bar deadlift today, and I'm like this. Guys, today, trap bar deadlift, this week 3. I want everybody to get stronger. I want everybody to push a little bit more. Listen up. I'm like, my energy's there. Nobody's falling asleep, okay? From there, we're going to go into the training session, block 1. Music ramps up. We go hard in the paint, right? Again, so notice if I'm looking at the roller coaster of energy, like I'm getting them zoned in and focused, and then we're slowly progressing that warm-up, right? Then I'm kind of leveling it out. Then we go, boom. Block 1, we go hard in the paint. At the end of block 1, I want them to come down a little bit. Heart rate's coming down, CNS recovery, right? We got to break. I'm going to break down part 2, so I give them that break as I'm breaking down part 2. Then we turn it up again. Block 2 is over. We bring it back down again. Block 3 / finisher, skyrocket, okay? Then bring it back down, motivational huddle. At the end of that, 8 is actually recovery, right? And we teach people, do your breathing drills, do your static stretching, do your foam rolling, right? Calm down and get out of here, right? What did I do? I took them on a journey, right? Whoop, right? Because it can't be, I'm telling you right now, if it ends up being, so with an individual we do this, with a group we do the same thing, because if it's constantly like, let's go, that's not good coaching. It's not good coaching. Now, even my tone, right? I've been very fortunate to do training with Roger Love, one of the greatest speaking coaches in the world. Right? We talk about frequency. So the frequency of speaking, I can bring it up and talk the frequency up, or I can slow it down and talk a lot slower. Right? When I do that, guess what? It changes the ambiance. I can be higher pitch or I can be lower pitch, right? So I can switch this up and switch my tonality up. So when I bring the music down, I'm like, all right, guys, listen up. Breathe. Breathe. Right? And then when we start going back to that block, next block, all right, guys, grab your weights. Let's go. We're going to turn it up. We're going to turn it, and I bring it back up again. Because, why am I telling you guys this? Because it's a damn show. It's a show. Okay? You owe your clients to put on a show. And when you do, you'll be rewarded with their results, their referrals, their retention, their word of mouth, and your bank account. Okay? Trust me on this. So, man, I'm getting myself fired up. I have to calm down and bring my tonality down right here, okay? From there, saying everybody's name at least 6 times. You got to practice this. It's actually not difficult. So this is what I do. I have a little drill. So when I meet somebody new, I don't know their name, I'll say it, and I'll make it funny too, because I'm like, name's Sherry? Okay, Sherry. So here's what I do. I repeat your name a lot of times right now so I can remember it and never forget it. Okay, Sherry, does that sound good, Sherry? That good, Sherry? Give me a high five, Sherry. Sherry, 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 Sherry. And like, they'll usually laugh when I do that, right? And then I'll say it another 20 times in my head just to lock it in. But then, guess what? When I see them for a group training session, great job, Sherry. Especially if it's a new person, because if somebody's been there for a while, of course you know their name. But if it's a new person, right, even more important to share their name a lot, okay? Because again, they also feel cared and appreciated for, because the most beautiful sound to anybody in the world is their name, okay? But this is operationalized, minimum of 6 times. It's not difficult, right? If you got 16 people in class and you got a packed class, you're going to say 100, basically you're going to say 16 names 6 times, that's 100 times. That's not a lot. You just heard me say Sherry's name 14 times in like 4 seconds. So obviously don't do that with everybody. It'll be a little weird, okay? So say everybody's name 6 times. From here, maybe you've heard me talk about this, but I'm going to go dive deep, decently deep into this. General, specific, individual. I actually don't know where I heard this. I think Alan Cosgrove might have initially taught me general and specific, and then I added the individual component to it. So general, this is how you coach any group class. Small group, big group, whatever it may be, right? This is just a concept, principle-based thing that like really, really works well. And it's what I did a long, long time ago where people were like, hey, I felt like I was getting one-on-one coaching, even though there was 20 plus people in, like when initially I started doing boot camps, which was like 16 years ago, right? And this is how I operated. And general coaching is a cue that you say that goes for everybody, right? So let's say I'm walking around the training session, I'm like, guys, make sure you got a long spine. Think like somebody's pulling you by a string, okay? At the crown of your head, pulling you by a string. Because what's that going to do? For most people to have that forward head posture, right? It's going to get their thoracic spine more neutral, packed chin, better posture, core engaged. So if you're doing a push-up, does this make sense? Yep. What about if I'm doing a TRX row? What about if I'm doing a deadlift? Yep. What about if I'm doing a squat? What about if I'm doing a lunge? Right? Like, that's a general cue that goes for almost everybody. Probably majority exercises is going to work. So even though it's a general cue, everybody is getting coached on it. Keep that tall spine. Brace your abs for a punch, right? So no matter what you're doing, people are like, right? Then I go specific. So usually I'll go 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1, right? So whether it's the same cue when I call general, then I go to specific. If you're doing a kettlebell deadlift or if you're doing a trap bar deadlift, make sure you're pushing the ground away like a leg press. And I'm in that trap bar area, right? I'm like, I want you to, and I'm there like showing it, right? I'm talking about it. I'm like, pretend like you're pushing the ground away. Don't pull with your back. Push with your legs into the ground. That's specific. If you're doing a push-up, make sure you're pushing that pointing knuckle, right, into the ground because most people's hands will roll. Spread your fingers wide, push that pointing knuckle into the ground as you drive up, okay? Now I'm in a specific realm. So 3, 2, and then I'll go individual. I'm going to go to a person and go, Mary, I'm going to block your knees real quick. I legitimately will put I would like knee in front of their knee, right? Because they're kind of like squatty deadlifting, right? So I'll go in front, be like, hey, I'm going to block your knee here once you push your hips back. So now they have two things. I gave them a verbal cue. I may have even gone like, push your butt back to the wall. So that's a visual cue. And I gave them a kinesthetic cue. So now I blocked their knee. So now when they're trying to go forward, they can't. Oh, I can't, so I got to go back. Boom. And I'm like, great job, Mary. Way to push your hips back. Right? So now I shined a light on a positive step and it made it specific to them, and that was individual. Right? And boom, I make that correction, I'm back at it. Okay? Whatever you're holding, grip it hard. General. Right? Then I go to specific. Floor press. Make sure you're reaching with your chest and roll the dumbbells down. Boom. Individual. Hey, Jay, push that low back into the ground as you drive. Push that low back in. Great job. Way to push that low back into the ground. Boom. I'm back at it. 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1. And always remember, A, B, C. Now, it does not stand on always be closed. It means always be coaching. And when I do ABC squared, by the way, I'm going to trademark it. So if you use it, give me homage because it's squared. Always be coaching, always be connecting. Always be coaching, always be connecting, right? Back to this. Making people feel appreciated, cared for, empowered, strong, part of the community. Okay? So from there, we go into coach each individual at least twice. So if I have an hour training session, that's a long time. I'm pretending I got a full class of 16 people in my small group. That means I got to do 32 individual coachings. I'm telling you right now, that's very little for me. If I only do 2 times for each person in a group training session, that's little for me. I'm shooting for 5. Okay, challenge yourself. The cool thing about this is next time when you go and you'll be like, damn, like I'm not even doing 1, right? And most people don't. This is where you separate yourself. It's a different ball game, right? So that's operationalized. And then, I did this for probably the first 8 to 10 years of my career, guys. Do I do it right now all the time? No. Do I still do it sometimes? Yes. Write a summary and notes. What went well? What didn't go well? What coaching cues did you use? And maybe you made some stuff up and it was like, oh man, that was money. Some people didn't respond well and they were new. Write a note. What are you going to do different next time? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, you are basically creating your own Bible of how to improve. And the Stoics would do it, right? You'd reflect, Socrates, like reflect at the end of the day, what went well, what didn't go well, what can I improve? It doesn't have to be a lot, but like if you do that for a year and you're running, you're probably going to run more than that, but like if you're running 3 sessions a week, that's going to be 156 sessions a year, and you got notes from 156 sessions. Remember, I have this concept, say, learn, apply, reflect, improve. Course correct, number 4. And then repeat the process forever. Okay? The problem is that people don't reflect. And the summary and notes allow you to reflect. And when you reflect, you can actually make changes. If you don't, you're just like, next session, oh man, I'm so tired. And then it's like you just don't improve. And you keep repeating your mistakes. Right? And so this is what I'm talking about. Like, these are principles, but I'm trying to operationalize them for you so that you can actually practically apply them. Right? So take notes. Okay, move them here. Before, like we're going to go through this, I'm going to have another sip of C4 and maybe go blank and just talk about some stuff, who knows, but then we're going to go into some Q&As. Okay, so these are just, again, some functionalities that I want you to think about. Demonstrate well, clearly, for different fitness levels. This is going back to you practicing it, okay? So to get really good at this, you have to practice it. So I may be with my coaching staff and go like, hey, like, let's go through this. Demonstrate these 3 exercises for me in less than 3 minutes and make sure you show me a visual cue, a mirror cue, a kinesthetic cue, and a verbal cue. 3, 2, 1, go. And a lot of times at the beginning, I might be like, which is okay. It's fine. but we got to practice it to get better at it. And then record it too. It's always good when you're recording in people's faces, being like really weird. And then they're like, oh, I don't know what to do, right? But you got to practice that so you get over it, so you get better at it, okay? I think it's very important to be good in front of a camera too. But again, like being good in front of a camera, in front of people, they go very hand in hand, right? So number 2 is use as much hands-on training in all senses. I gave you guys an example in that general, specific individual where I'm using the different senses. Because remember, if you got 5 different people, for one person you gotta have a coaching cue and it's gonna hit. They're gonna be like, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. Doing the, if I'm doing a kettlebell clean like that, put on a surgical glove, right? Snap the hips and then put on a surgical glove, right? Surgical glove, right? And it's gonna work for somebody. For somebody, it's gonna be like absolute trash, right? And then I'm gonna have to hit them with the Bruce Lee, like, I want you to elbow punch, right? So elbow punch, real quick. Elbow punch, boom, and it slips in. Wow, that works, right? For some, that won't go, right? And then we gotta get creative and go, is it visual? Do I need to give them a heavier bell so they're not muscling it? What do I have to do? Okay, so again, this is like a toolbox for me, right? Here, I promise you, still to this day, right? I was in Miami with Jay getting a training session in, and he's like, man, I figured something out. Like, watch, when you let your wrist bend, get the thumb out, when we do these presses, does it not make you feel your shoulders? I'm like, oh man, it feels great. Let's do that. I'm always collecting cues, methods, a toolbox for forever. I don't care how long I've been doing this. I promise you, I'm borderline psychotic, obsessive, like I'm always studying this. You always have to have an empty cup and learn, right? And the thing is, I'm always collecting this so that I can try to pull out, this is not working, boom, this one works. I make a mental note, I'm gonna coach that client with this cue, or maybe these 2 cues that are always working, right? So, involve clients, structure interaction time. Now, the involve clients part, remember, people want to be part of communities, okay? So, again, you gotta read this a little bit, which is another one of them. So if I got a new person, I go like, hey, Sherry, come here, I'm gonna go through some coaching cues for everybody with you. I'm gonna involve them. What do you feel here? What do you feel here, right? Or have a question in between the break between, I would say, a block 2 and block 3, right? Bring somebody in and ask them a question. Have an interaction time. Hey guys, I noticed one thing during block 2 when we were doing lunges, right? Hey, listen, Mary, come here. I want you to do a lunge for me real quick. All right, pause right there. Notice what she's doing. Mary, what do you think you're doing? I think that like I'm arching my back too much. Bingo, that's one of them. All right, how do we prevent that? Right, so I take a quick 45, 60 seconds learning time, involve somebody, they correct it, great job. Way to do that from now on, like we're gonna do this. Right, so I'm basically involving clients, I'm structuring interaction time. Read body language to connect and coach. Right, there are like, and again, this is a great book, it's called What Every Body Is Saying. There's another 2, but maybe I'll put them in the comments or something like that. But look up what everybody's saying, and it talks about body language and reading people, right? So if somebody's feeling very like threatened, and you're like, all right, great, Jack, we're gonna put you on a spotlight, and they're like, right? That's not a great experience for them. So you got to read body language to be able to know who's the right person. That person, you might come up to them and like, hey, listen, great job in that last round. Great job with this, awesome. I want you to work a little bit on this, a little quieter, put a hand on their back, right? Like, you gotta find that because, again, how can you make everything as individual within a group setting? That's what's gonna blow your business up, okay? Because people are gonna talk, they're gonna love it, they're gonna stay, okay? Right, personal feedback after every session, ask questions. I think this is super powerful. If after a group session, you take 5 minutes, right? And remember, you got people's numbers, if they're in Zen Planner, if they're in Vagaro or something like that, and you just go like, hey, so proud of you today. I saw you break through with the form on that trap bar deadlift. It was the best I've seen you. High five, emoji, right? So it takes you 5 minutes to send out 10 texts. People are gonna be like, damn. You know what I'm saying? Like seriously, it's the little piece that doesn't take a lot, but it will completely make an experience better. And then feedback, anonymous links. I think every quarter you should have some type of survey with all your clients, but I think even on a monthly basis, if you text to like your small group, for example, And you said, here's an anonymous link. I won't know where it's coming from. Any feedback, good or bad, a complaint is a gift. I'm always here to make things better. People appreciate that deeply, okay? So, quite a bit.